Hey everyone, welcome back. At the end of day 2 here at Network Field Day 33. The day started with Nokia. Nice presentation from Nokia. They had three different distinct presentations throughout there. They really all focused on container lab, though. So if you've not played with Container Lab, you should really go check it out. Container Lab, if you're unfamiliar with it, is it's an application that lets you quickly build virtual networks using Dockerized images. At Nokia, they have Dockerized images for their switches. Arista has some as well. They have a list of supported ones on their websites. Cisco's in there. There aren't a ton. Cisco doesn't do a whole lot of Docker versions of their switch operating systems, and I think that router that they have, that's how it's deployed. It's a Docker based operating system, so you don't have iOS or NXOS or anything like that. There might be ways to get around that if you ask Google. But generally speaking, it's a very quick way of spinning up these virtual switches without having to do something like a GNS or an Eve or spend the money on CML. So the first presentation, again, highly recommend checking it out. So the first presentation was basically just a conversation around Container Lab as a product. So a few of the cool things that got brought out in there that I guess I had never really thought of before was a way of using the application as a a way of working with your team. Like you're an engineering team and you're all contributing towards building a new, let's say it's a new deployment, a new environment, and you can share the topologies back and forth really easily, spin them up, and collaborate on them. And I've always thought of it as, hey, I'm going to use something like this as an individual to learn. And they proposed that, and I thought that's a pretty interesting take on it. I guess I just never really thought about it before, because I've never really worked on a team that has iterated or worked like that. But that led me to think more along the lines of, and I'm going to tie this into automation. Is I've noticed that there are a lot of there are a lot of different difficulties when it comes to automation, to getting into automation, to adopting it. But sometimes there's this barrier of just being able to quickly spin up virtual environments, virtual switches, really, to play with. And even if you're not running Nexus in your environment, I'm sorry, not Nexus, even if you're not running Nokia in your environment, that's really just the interaction portion. So let's say you're trying to use something like Ansible. Well, an Ansible playbook for a Nokia device isn't really going to be much different than an Ansible playbook for a Cisco device. So you could start to really learn and iterate and play with automation, with Container Lab, and start to develop some of those chops so that switching it over to Cisco or Juniper or Arista, and again, some of those other ones are easier to automate and spin up against. But I just never thought of it that way either. It's like, well, I usually spin these labs up for like testing networking, like routing. How do I configure this? Or maybe studying for a test. But yeah, this is the first time I'd really thought about, oh, well, if you're doing this with a team, you're doing this as an individual, wait, you, you could learn automation this way. So it felt like a eureka moment for me. Probably not a eureka moment for a lot of people, but it was definitely fun to just talk about Container Lab. The next presentation was about GNMIC, which is an open source GNMI API client and telemetry collector. And as part of the demo for that, using Container Lab, they have this entire telemetry lab that you can deploy basically by running two commands. It's one command to basically pull down the Git repo, and it has all of the topology and configuration files in there. Then the second command to bring it all online. And once you do that, you have a full-blown GNMI telemetry, streaming telemetry lab just running at your fingertips. And it was another just great example of, okay, here's what Container Lab can do. But it also, it it made me think a bit about just the streaming telemetry concept in general, because thus far, all my monitoring's been SNMP based, and I don't think SNMP is going anywhere, even though version 3 of it is out there now. SNMP is going to be around for a while, but we're definitely going to start seeing more streaming telemetry out there in the wilds. I mean, it's going to slowly become the de facto, and then there's going to be some time for the tooling. I mean, maybe SNMP sticks around forever. I mean, it's not like Telnet has actually gone away. It's still out there. So the legacy things may hang around, but it's a really good way to experiment with streaming telemetry without having to necessarily impact your environments, and just to get a good look at it. You run two commands and boom, they're going streaming telemetry lab. The last one was an AI demo. It was kind of cool. I had talked with the Nokia folks last night, and when they sort of let it slip that there was going to be some AI in their presentation, it kind of, there's a lot of AI talk out there. How are you going to make this work? Like, how are you going to make this not feel too much like a gimmick? And what they demonstrated was an application that you could just clone directly into a Nokia switch, which is kind of cool. It's kind of dangerous or scary as well, but it was also cool. You provide it. I believe there were a couple different ways of configuring it, but they ran it against OpenAI, against against GPT-4. And if let's pretend you've never used Nokia before, which there's a lot of people who haven't, and you want to start learning how to configure things for it. So the example was BGP. I don't remember the exact thing with inside BGP that we set up, but it was, hey, AI, how do you configure this BGP option? And it explained what it was, and then it gave you, I think it was either YAML or no, it was JSON, the JSON blob to configure that, and then it gave you the actual commands, which they're like set commands, to configure it as well. And what I really liked about it is that it was a way to talk with the switch and learn how to use the switch and configure the switch, which for a lot of engineers out there, so I've been, Cisco forever. That kind of made it easy to learn Arista. Doing Juniper, that was it's not like it was shocking, but it was just like, oh yeah, this is very different. So the fact that they built this AI integration out to where within a context you can ask about a feature and then have it describe how to configure the feature, and it looked like it could even take the existing configuration as it sat within the device and give you feedback on it as far as, well, how would I troubleshoot this, or how would I turn this on or add to this? Now they were very clear, like, don't do this in prod. This is talking to Chat GPT basically. So you're sending that information out there. So not for production, very much for lab. very much for learning and labbing and stuff like that. So all the normal caution that you have out there for feeding information into an internet-based AI engine. However, if you've never touched it before and you want to start learning it, it was such a cool way to get into it. I can't wait, honestly, to get it in there and test it on my own. Definitely going to give that a go. Maybe I'll make a video on that of just like, here are some of the things that I've found that you can do with it, because it was cool. It really, honestly, really brilliant on Nokia's behalf to do something like that to help engineers understand how to use their platform. Container labs in general, just allowing people to pull those images and fire them up without even having to agree to a EULA or anything like that. I don't know what they had to do within legal to make that happen, but kudos, good job, way to make it happen. So that was Nokia. There were no old cell phones at the presentation, but there might have been a couple old cell phone jokes. I don't think they're ever going to stop hearing those old cell phone jokes. It's inevitable. So thank you for watching. Check out, just one more time, check out Container Lab. It's cool. But thank you for watching. We'll see you again soon.